Good morning, baseball lovers. It's your buddy Choppadong. I am going to talk a little bit of MLB again with you today. We're going to talk a little bit of contest selection. If you saw me just kick off of that DraftKings page, and we're going to dive into the early 5-game slate for MLB today. So welcome aboard. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for always hitting that like and subscribe button, ringing the notification bell so that you get this video as soon as it drops. For those of you that don't know how to do that, head down into the lower corner of the page there, click those buttons and sign yourself up. And think about hitting the link in the comments section, the DFSArmy.com link, to come inside and get the VIP treatment and get the content, tools, and coaching that are making people, honestly, teaching people how to win and how to be competitive, and then a little bit further down the road, how to eventually dominate the game, along with all the other Army hats you see all over the leaderboards. Use that coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 20% off discount. Get yourself in here today and get locked in no matter what our prices do. As long as you stay a member, your price never goes up, including the 20% discount. That's not just 20% off the first month. That's 20% off of every month going forward, as long as you never cancel your membership. So let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit of MLB. Of course, you can always follow me out on Twitter at Choppadong. I wanted to show you on the early slate, the early only slate, that there are no quarters to play on Fanduel. So now what? What do we do? Well, I'm not going to be making any 20, 30, 40, 50 lineups today. I'm going to probably dive into something a little bit more reasonable. I could play the 3-entry max here if I wanted to. I could play the small bunt and put in, this is just a single entry. I could play the sac fly, which is 5 entries. I believe it's just single entry, right? Yep, single entry. And that's fine. These are, in lieu of 100-mans, these are kind of okay, because when you look at the dissection of this contest, if I can put, that gives me 8 lineups. Holy crap, that's even better. 8 out of 294 people. Whip up the trusty, dusty calculator. 8 divided by 2. 94. That gives me a 2.7% control of the player pool, of the lineups going into the player pool. Now, if you have an edge as a DFS player, you're going to have an edge in this game, because a lot of people are going to come in, put in 1 lineup, 2 lineups, maybe 3. They're going to get upwards of maybe, 0.5% or a full percent of the overall player pool, and you're going to come in here with 3%, and you're going to have 3 times the entries they're going to have. And if you're a better player, you're hogging up that space for yourself in the money spots, in the leaderboard, or giving yourself more shots at actually producing the winning combo. And these guys don't realize the edge that they're giving you when they do that. Now, as a result, I like 100-mans a little bit better with their structure. When they fill, yeah, they only pay the top 12%. And as a result, they're a little bit harder to get into the money. But when they get in the money, they unlock it pretty quickly. And as opposed to beating 300 guys, I only have to beat 100 guys in the 100-man league, and I get 25 bucks. I'm going to beat 100 people before I'm going to beat 300 people. However, if I place in the top 1%, that's about 3rd place here. These are the metrics. If you followed the podcast yesterday from DFSArmy.com, we talked a little bit about contest selection, where to gauge yourself. I look at benchmarks. What's the top 50%? So in this case, top 150 players or so. How often do I hit that? How often do I get in the top 20%, which would be about, what, 39, about 60 people. So right about where it pays. And that's why top 20% pay in GPPs typically. So how often am I getting into the top 20%? And then how often am I really making a run at it? How often am I getting into the top 1%? Here is 3rd place. 1% pays $15 on the dollar. That's not terrible, considering that it gives me a couple of more spots there for a little bit bigger money. Now, if you want to play in bigger GPPs that pay higher towards 1st place, that's fine. But understand, you're going to have to produce a better and better and better and better lineup in the terms of the percentage of the overall player pool in the world that you have to beat to win it. Here's the math. What's 1 divided by 294? That's your percentage chance of winning this thing if all things were created equal. 0.3%, right? So about 1/3 of a percent. If you can produce a lineup that gets into the top 1/3 of 1% of the world, then you have a chance of winning it. Or if you do win this, you built a top 1/3 of 1% lineup. That's how you would look at that. I like to get into the top 1% as often as I can, because again, that gives me a chance to win the 100-man leagues and get 25 bucks back on my dollar. But when those aren't filling, those aren't guaranteed contests, I'll jump into one of these as a guaranteed contest. I love seeing, 8 lineups. The more lineups it allows, the more it allows me to hog percentage shares of the lineups built in the contest. That gives me an inherent advantage over the people that don't fill it. However, if we get into the giant contests like the quarters contests, 50,000, 60,000 people, and we can only put, say, 150 lineups in there, I've still only got a 0.5% of the total lineups built. So whether I put in 20 lineups and I have, little less than 0.1%, or put in a full 150 and only have 0.5%, the advantage there isn't really growing that much. Now, if I can only put in, say, 0.5%, or somebody else can put in, say, 3% of the total lineups in the contest, now that person's getting a big advantage, a significant advantage very, very quickly. You'll notice most of these contests cap at about 2.9 to 3% of the numbers that they allow you to control, of the lineups they allow you to control. That's probably done for a reason. But in those contests, I try. If it allows me to put in 3%, I try to put in 3%. Or I don't play it. If that gets out of my budget and above my head, I don't play it. I would never go to the $4.44 multi-entry 150 lineup max tournament and only put in a single bullet. That is just pissing money away and giving the edge completely to the sharks that have the budget to go fill that thing. I'm going to stay down lower in the quarters, down in the dollars, things like that. I'm going to play these little 8 maxes, 3 maxes, 5 maxes things. The 3 max never gives you a ton of ability either. Three lineups out of 2, 3, 8, 0. Okay, so 1 divided by 2, 3, 8, 0, is a e to the minus 4. So what is that? 0.00004, something along those lines. My math is shaky. Been out of high school for too long. But that's the general idea. Versus 3 lineups out of, what did we say? 2,380, 2,380. So 0.001. So, 0.1% versus, whatever, 0.04%, something along those lines. The advantage, you've only got a 0.1% chance at winning this thing with the lineup anyway. So maxing this thing out at 3 entries isn't necessarily a bigger advantage. I mean, it technically is, but the 3 lineup advantage is still so small that it doesn't really matter if you put 1 bullet in there or 3. So even though it's a 3 max, you don't have to max that one out because, again, you're not controlling a large enough percentage of the overall lineups. But in a contest like this one here, where we showed 8 lineups possible, you do need to max that one out, in my opinion. You can treat it like a cash game, though, because top 20% pay, which means out of 8 lineups, I should get a couple of them into the top 60, right? And if I get a couple of them in the top 60, say I get 2 of my 8 in the top 60, that's $5 it returns on my $8 investment. That's a cash game. I didn't lose too much, didn't get too hurt. I can lose $3 a day as long as I've got shots to take 30. And if I end up with 2 lineups in the top, that's 45 on $8. It's a 5x return. That's pretty good. That's why I don't mind these contests too much. The more I analyze these contests, the more I study them. Okay? So if we look over on DraftKings, because DraftKings will usually do some of the quarters contests as well. If I look at just the early, just the classic here and just the early slate, then I come down here and I can see that some of the quarters, there's an 11,800 person quarter event where I can only put 20 lineups in. Let's do the math again. Because you're going to see that 1 divided by 11,800, is that what it was? Is e to the minus 5. It's not a very big percentage chance on a single bullet, of course, but 20 divided by 11.8 is still only 0.1%. It's not much. The advantage isn't huge. Now this advantage here, let's say you put in 10 lineups instead of the 20. You're still down in the e to the minus 4 bit. So, I mean, would it pay to put in the 20? Sure. Are you going to win this contest very often? No. It's going to be hard to beat 12,000 people. But you scroll down here, 12,000 people, 118th is a 1% lineup. That's another barrier. Remember, 118th is $2. That's 8x. That's pretty good. It's close to the 10x that we're looking for. That's pretty good. So if you can build 1% lineups, you can make money on this. And if you build a really, really good lineup, you've only got another 100 some odd people to beat before you get up there. So the contest isn't so big, it's unbearable. But it's not exactly good. I'd like to see us be able to put, say, 50 lineups into this thing, because 50 lineups, it gives us a 0.4, about 0.5%. So at least we're starting to get there. We're starting to get a little bit of the lion's share of the total number of contests. But ultimately, you would want to put 150 or more into this thing. You just can't. This thing's a little bit too big. So analyzing these contest structures is definitely going to help you. Another one down here at the very, very bottom, 29.45. You know, 24%, 25% is pretty good if you want to min cash. If you want to just get some money back, try and get half your lineups in here. If you put 20 lineups into this thing, try and get 10 of them into the cash, and then you'll profit. Most likely, because a couple of them will be a little bit higher up here than just this. But that's what you're trying to do. Get into the top half of contests, get into the top 20% of contests, get into the top 1% of contests. Gauge your abilities that way and watch it over time. Don't just think one day my system didn't work, so I changed my system up and go to a different system. Let your system run out for a week or so. How many lineups did you cash? Did your bankroll grow or did it shrink? If so, if it shrank, you might need to reevaluate a little bit. Are you playing too much? You know, I'm noticing that in some of the contests when I dump in, 40 and 50 lineups and I only run the same 5 teams, well, I'm really pigeonholing myself on the success of those 5 teams. And it's pretty hard to hit all 5 of those teams. Now, I might hit a couple of them, but it's really holding me back. I need to spread out and take on maybe 8 offenses, 9 offenses, and spread out on those bigger slates. Then on the smaller slates, maybe cut down my play and not necessarily. So it becomes a weird, ebb and flow, yin and yang, whatever you want to call it, between do I put in a ton of lineups and max out the entries and take control of the contest, or do I just kind of stay back because I'm starting to kind of step on my own toes when I put in a ton of lineups. These are all things we talk about inside DFS Army. When I look down a little bit lower, I would like to find one of these quarter contests here, because watch this. Out of 237, 7 into 237, if you remember from the first contest, that's going to give me better control. There's my 3%. 7 out of 237 is going to give me 3% control of that contest. I've got more of an edge in this contest than I do that great big one, even though first price is only $10. Second place, 2.3, 2.4%. Move the decimal place over 2 for a 1% lineup. Second place is $6. That's what, 12x on my quarter? I'm cool with that. Very cool with that. Might even be better than that. It's more, geez, it is better than that. 6 divided by 0.25, 24x. I'll take the 24x. It's almost as good as a 100-man league, and it's a 200-man league. This is a great, great, great structured contest to build a bankroll because it pays, 50 out of 237, 22%, 21%. It pays good to the top 1%, and it pays a little bit more if you go ahead and win the thing. And really and truly, it's the luck of the draw. If you get into this range, first, second, third, a little bit of luck, you could get a little bit lower score that night out of your competitors, and you could end up with the full $10. Good little contest to get into. I would max these out before I would get up into the 11,800 man. Don't let that first prize of $50 fool you. This is the better contest by the math. You get down into here into the winner take alls. Instead, those are junk. I don't even mess with those. The mini max, if you've got the money, do it. Let's analyze that really quickly, and then we'll go pick some pictures and stuff. 23,700 people, so 5350. 23,700 people. The math just works the same for it. 22.5%, not bad. Top 1% lineup would be 237th. That's $6. That's only 6x on my dollar. That's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. I'd like to see 8x, 10x, something along those lines. And then, how many lineups can I put in? A full 150 out of 23,700. So 150 divided by 23,700. So 0.6%, so not even 1%. Not a good contest to max out. There's no edge in maxing this contest out. There really isn't. So put in 20 lineups if you want to. Put in 25. It's not something that's really going to give you a massive edge. You're not gaining a ton of lion's share of the total number of entries. So that's roughly how we analyze some of these contests. It's just a good way to go about doing it. Let's dive into the research station. I've already called up the pitchers, so we'll really fly through this part. These are the 5 games we're looking at. DFSArmy.com, under the MLB tab, it'll hover out. Sorry, you can't see all of that, but it'll hover out, and then you can get down into the research station. You select the times of the games or select the games that you're watching. We scroll over here to the right. We look at DFSA grade a little bit, but I'm sorting by K-score because I want strikeout upside. If you followed my videos, it's the first place I start. And the way I do it is if I kick down into here and come to my K-score number, pull that up a little bit. Now let's look at these. Charlie Morton, Corey Kluber, Freddie Peralta, German Marquez, Anibal Sanchez, and maybe, I don't know if that's the right Sanchez or not, don't care. Luis Castillo, Aaron Nola. Nola down low on the list because of the K-score is very, very intriguing to me, but he's still a very, very good pitcher on the slate. He's expensive. So let's look if we can't find a little bit better combination. Well, everybody's got a better combination right now of K-score. I left a couple of scrubs off. But everybody's got a better combination of the K-score. They may not have the DFSA grade, which is a catch-all metric. I see a 37 like this way up top, and I kind of get a little worried because there's factors that I'm not looking at, that I don't personally look at, that are telling me it's not a good matchup. Probably a lot of it's ballpark being in Cincinnati. A lot of it could be Freddie Peralta's vulnerable. That's why he's also cheap. But at a 513 K-score, he's got upside. If you want to use him in GPPs or use him as a second pitcher in a tournament on DraftKings, go for it, man. I mean, he's got the upside. There's no doubt. He's got the K-score. Cincinnati hadn't exactly been ripping the cover off the ball lately. They've been in a couple of good spots, and they've faltered. Maybe you catch fire there. That's how you're going to win some of these GPPs, is going places other people are a little bit scared to go. Nola's going to be a pretty safe pick. Kluber's going to be a pretty safe pick. Even Charlie Morton might be the best overall pick on the slate. At 8,800 on both sites, minus 135 odds and a 525 K-score is going to be hard to beat. 71 DFSA grade isn't terrible. Matchup Colorado on the road isn't all that intimidating. I can get behind me some Charlie Morton today in either site, in either format. Because am I going to really pay, 1,500 more or so for Corey Kluber? I get better Vegas odds. I don't get a better K-score. Get a little better DFSA grade. But is that really worth the 1,500 bucks? I don't know. I haven't built lineups yet. It might not be. But these two are going to be tops on my list. I will look at Peralta in tournaments. I'll look at German Marquez some because he's got a 500 K-score. Anything over 500 is good. Approaching 500 is good. Over 500 is a barrier that I look for. 87 DFSA grade looks great. Tampa, though, has been a little bit hot lately. I might look into that, and he's an underdog. Doesn't have all of the factors going for him that a Morton or a Kluber have. Sanchez, priced down on DK, gives me pause. Underdog gives me more pause. 495 tells me the upside is there. 57 DFSA grade facing Philly. Do you really want to face Philadelphia right now? Again, tournament pick, if you want to catch lightning in a bottle, probably not something I'm interested in. Castillo, priced up a little bit on DK. That makes me a little bit intrigued. But I'm going to look over here at the minus 115 favorite, the 470. I'm going to go minus 115. I can get better up here for a fairly similar price. And I can get a lot better K-score for a fairly similar price. So Castillo is not the factor that Charlie Morton is for me. Hey, look, guys, I'm going to make my bet and line, plus facing the Milwaukee lineup. I'm going to make my bet and lie in it. I don't care. I'm not going to get too nitpicky over my pitchers. I have my method. It works for me. It fails a lot. It works a lot. I pick my pitchers based on this. I put them all together in a little spreadsheet so that I can look at them in a helicopter view, look at them all in the same vein, looking at the same categories, and I stack them up. Who checks more boxes? Salary, Vegas odds, K-score, DFSA grade. Looks good, looks good, looks good, looks good. He's going to be hard to beat. Come down here, maybe I find a little better. Oh, it's going to cost me more, so maybe not. Minus 140 favorites, the same as the 135. 474 is not the same as a 525 K-score. Washington's a little bit more dangerous lineup than Colorado, probably on the road, especially right now. 82 DFSA grade versus 71. That was interesting. There's more good metrics going for Nola, so I'll probably include some Nola in my lineups. But he's not going to be my predominant cash game pitcher today. It's probably going to be Charlie Morton. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I took Blake Snell last night because of the exact same reasons. Hello! I'd say that worked for me. And I also took Matt Strahm the night before. That did not work for me. So it's going to have its ups and downs, just like any other system that you use. But the more I use these systems, the more I stay within the same parameters, the more I allow the good luck and the bad luck to hit me and flow through me. I'm not constantly chasing my tail. When I constantly chase my tail, I'm chasing bad luck and more bad luck and more bad luck and more bad luck and more bad luck. Oh, God, why can't I ever win? Just one time, please. And then I get all down on myself and I get discouraged and I want to quit. Find a system that works for you, stick with it, let it ride the good times and ride the bad times. All right, let's go back to the batters, because the first thing we're going to do when we pick these batters is we're going to take the pitchers and we're going to sort ascending by the bad DFSA grade. Should be a little time delay in here, so we'll see if this doesn't kick in. Now it should be ready to go. Bad pitchers. 1, 2, 3 of them. Bad grades. High 18s, 20s, whatever. Bad pitchers. Homer Bailey, yeah. Carlos Rodon, Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta has a lot of bad going for him, so we're really going to have to watch him. So the ones that I'm initially wanting to stack today are Minnesota, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Done. I'll mix the others in as one-offs. You know, I'm not overly concerned. Now, if I looked at the DFS A grade and I saw 5 pitchers in the 20s, I'd be looking at 5 offenses. You know, but I only see 2 or 3, so that's fine. 2 or 3 works. These guys are not to necessarily be feared, but they're not. You don't necessarily want to target these bats. You're getting contrarian if you do, because the indicators are that these are getting to be pretty good pitchers. Could you stack against Corey Kluber? Absolutely. In a tournament where you're trying to get leverage on the fact that you think Corey Kluber might be the chalky pitcher of the day, you know, I would stack Colorado. I think Charlie Morton should be the chalky pitcher of the day. Is he going to be? I don't know. I don't see ownership reports yet, but I'm going to be assuming Charlie Morton's the chalkier pitcher. Corey Kluber's a name. Aaron Nola's a name. So yeah, if I want to run these 3 offenses against them, I can in some stacks. I'm not going to go overboard with it though, because the likelihood of it panning out isn't good. The odds, the likelihood of these offenses having good days is better. So I'm going to look within these offenses, Minnesota, Cleveland, Cincinnati, for the trends. And I'm going to sort the trends by the L7 WOBA, by descending, and bring all of the hot bats to the top. I'm going to watch the sample size on the plate appearances, but I'm going to scroll over here so that I can see the WOBA and I can see my prices and I can see my plate appearances, and I'm just going to start cruising through. Who was first? Minnesota? There's only 3 guys that we should be looking at. Nope, that needs to scroll up. Jake Cave, 1 plate appearance. He's out. I'm not even going to worry about him if he starts. 4 plate appearances, kind of out. 13 Nelson Cruz, 482 WOBA. Okay, not so bad. The righty on righty, which is very, very common. You don't need to, even lefty on lefty. People, oh, don't use lefty on lefty. I will point it out. I don't care about it. Why? Corey Bellinger hit a grand slam last night. Even if it's lefty on lefty versus a starter and Bellinger's grand slam, say it would have come in the 8th inning against a righty out of the bullpen, they're not going to be facing left-handers all game long. You're going to still get some at-bats against right-handers. What you do is you use that leverage. People can run away from it because they've read everywhere that it's such a bad matchup, when there are people like Charlie Blackmon who have great splits against left-handed pitching, and there are people like Cody Bellinger that can hit a home run, can hit a grand slam even, at very, very low ownership because everybody else is afraid. So I don't even worry about that stuff, to be honest with you. I'm playing the hot bats. These trending WOBAs are not to handedness, but I'm going to be looking at them anyway because a hot hitter is a hot hitter in a lot of cases. He's seeing the ball pretty well. So Byron Buxton's cheap, really priced up on DraftKings, really cheap on Fanduel. And at a 465 WOBA, I'll be using a lot of him on Fanduel. Jorge Polanco, 367, not so good. I'm looking for over 400. If you're under 400, I'm not interested in you, especially on a small sample like only 7 days. I really want over 500, and Minnesota's not offering that. A lot of these other guys, yeah, could they pan out? Sure. Do I know if they're going to or not? I don't know. I'm going to run some random stacks because it's an offense facing a bad pitcher in Homer Bailey. So I'm going to run a lot of 3- and 4-man stacks, but they're going to be anchored by Buxton and Cruz. And then the other 2 will mix in. You know, and if Jake Cave gets a start, then maybe I'll look at him. Cleveland. Carlos Santana, okay. Hanley Ramirez, not so much. See, look at this. Look at these guys. They're not trending very well. Cleveland's not hitting very well right now. This is a bad sign for the slate. You got the offenses that are in the best spots, and you got a bunch of people that are not performing at all. This is like constantly running Boston out there right now, waiting for Boston to connect. Will they eventually? Sure. Are they going to tonight? No indicator that they will. Might not even play the slate now. My top 2 offenses have schlubs in them that aren't hitting. That's not a good recipe. All that means is now I have to dip into those tougher and tougher and tougher offenses facing tougher pitchers and start throwing darts at the wall. That's not how I play DFS. I got 159 games left or whatever at this point. I got time. I can sit and be patient. I don't need to play crappy slates. I don't need to take unnecessary guesses on crappy slates. Cincinnati, but I'm glad I looked at these numbers. Cincinnati, okay, I got 2, 3, 4 guys to pick from, so this might be my anchor stack. Casali, nope, no sample size on these guys. Maybe a little bit down in here. These guys aren't hitting, including Joey Votto at 382 WOBA. So, again, nothing fun. So let's do this instead. Let's see if we can find some hot offenses against some middling pitchers. So when I start looking at some of these guys down into what, let's go ahead and let's cut this out. This is another feature you can do when you get control of this bad boy yourself, is now you can completely control it yourself. I put in a 399 there because I want to cut out everything below 400. They're gone. These are the only names that I want to look for. And I'll go team by team. We looked at Cincinnati. We looked at Cleveland. Let's look at Colorado. Who's hitting well? Nobody. White Sox. Who's hitting well? Oh, there's a few. Okay, so now I can go to the White Sox and look, stacking against Corey Kluber. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go pull up a BVP site that I've saved. And I'm going to scroll down into the Chicago White Sox and look for BVP. 869 ops, 750, not great. I mean, Santana and Ramirez would be the guys that I would use. Whoops, those are the Cleveland guys. Let's look for BVP against 1044 José Abreu. 16 for 50, that's a big sample. 16 for 50, 3 doubles, 5 bombs. Abreu will be in a lot of my stacks. And you got that information out of me for free today. This is the kind of stuff we share with our VIPs, just so you know. Lurie Garcia, smaller sample, smaller sample, smaller sample, and these aren't great numbers against. Kluber's largely going to handle this lineup most of the time, except he's got trouble with Abreu. So I'll have, even though he's running at a 426 WOBA and not a, 500 or whatever, I'm still going to run him because he's hitting well at over 400 WOBA and he's got BVP on his side. If I had a single GPP one-off to use today, it would be José Abreu. I can tell that immediately. Not much going on in Kansas City. Not a lot going on in Milwaukee, which is odd because they had a great series against the Cardinals to open up. They must have gone quiet the past couple of days. We already saw Minnesota. But Yelich, Moustakas, and Braun, those are pretty strong numbers. Watch these 14-day numbers with Yelich. He got off to such a good start. We're going to want to watch these numbers start coming down. When they start coming down at 5,200, he's going to be a little bit overpriced. That's going to happen real fast this year because you can't sustain that kind of a WOBA. Philly's hitting the ball well, but they're facing Anibal Sanchez. Okay, so Sanchez isn't the greatest pitcher in the world. Maybe we got some love for Philly. Maybe Philly and Cincinnati, or Philly and Abreu, or something like that might be somewhere where we go with a few lineups. I will build fewer lineups today. Let's put it that way. I'll build fewer lineups today than I otherwise would have because I'll play it lighter today. But look at these numbers. These 600 WOBAs off of decent plate sample sizes. Maikel Franco, Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper, a little bit of Andrew McCutchen in there. But he's expensive. These guys are all pretty expensive. 3,800 JT Realmuto. Tampa Bay runs up against German Marquez, not the toughest pitcher in the world, but not a lot of people are really doing a lot of damage. Yandy Diaz just pulled up questionable. Kiermaier 418's playable. And then we look at the Washington Nationals, and nobody's doing squat there either. This is just a bad offensive slate. So you got two options. You can either stack and hope to hit right. Probably stack Philadelphia, play one-off like an Abreu if you can afford it after stacking Philadelphia. Or you just kind of spread out with a bunch of twosies, onesies and twosies across the slate. This is more of a onesies and twosies slate and hope to catch them right. Spread out, hope that you get a decent piece of the big offense that does go off because most of these offenses aren't hitting very well. And some of them might score that are facing bad pitchers. Some of them might not score because the bats can't take advantage of anything right now. Just a few different ways to play the slate. I think that I would mix and match, but I'm definitely going to play lighter. And I'm definitely going to temper my expectations on this slate. I want to see clear, bona fide targets. If I don't see them, I don't play very heavily. So anyway, stay tuned. Ring the notification bell, hit the like button and subscribe button if you like this kind of information. Contemplate becoming a VIP inside DFSArmy.com. Use that coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, so that you never get your price increased on you ever again. Click the link, become a VIP, come in and see me, say hi. We'll talk baseball all day long today. Take care, guys.